On today's show, we're talking voter turnout. Studies show that any Democrat could beat Trump if all unregistered LGBTQ people voted in 2020. So what's going on?
Also, we're joined by Stan Zimmerman, who has written for the Golden Girls, the Gilmore Girls, and the Brady Bunch. But now he's taking on ice. He and the star of his new show, Raquenel, are here to tell us all about it.
And the first trans person to run for California state office and the first trans woman editor-in-chief of a magazine, Ashlee Marie Preston, fights for a better future, and she shares with us exactly how she's planning to do it.
Great, all that and more right here on
The Q Agenda.
The Williams Institute at UCLA reported that more than 1 in 5 of LGBTQ people aren't registered to vote. That comes out to about around 21%. A new Now Next analysis finds that if every eligible unregistered queer voter got to the polls in 2020, Democratic presidential hopefuls would overtake Trump in most of the key battleground states. So what's happening and why aren't we registered to vote at higher numbers?
What else needs to happen? I don't know. Why aren't people registering? Why aren't people voting? We're seeing everything that is happening. It's on the news 24/7, whether you watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. It's on every paper. We're talking about it every single show.
Well,
what's up?
Oh, what I think is up is that it's not just that our people are out there being lazy and not registering to vote because they're apathetic. Some, surely, yes. But what I think is that what we're seeing is intersectionality in terms of minorities, other minorities, not just LGBTQ people, but LGBTQ people who are also people of color or who are also in the black community. What we are seeing is voter ID laws and disenfranchisement happening to those voters who happen to be LGBTQ. So in other words, voter suppression, and that's what's keeping us unregistered, I think.
So but it's why are LGBT? But this is not just colored people. I mean, sorry for lack of a better word, people of color.
Yeah.
Every LGBTQ member if it's 1 of 5.
But what they're saying is that comes out to around 21%. I'm sorry, 17% is what I think they're saying of LGBTQ people aren't registered to vote, compared to 21% of people who are non-LGBTQ. So what's happening is, I think a lot of our people are being suppressed in other ways for other reasons, like voter ID laws. There's some states where it says that your birth certificate, the gender on it, has to match the gender on your license before you walk in to vote.
Right.
So what we have to be careful about is all of the restrictions on voter voting that's happening in the United States, and understanding that just because they're talking about black people, they're talking about undocumented people, they're talking about, what they're really talking about is people who are also belong to the LGBTQ group, which is why it's so important for us to get involved wherever we see voter suppression happening.
Well, and with there's such a huge movement right now with youth. You know, they're so active on it.
Yes.
Do you feel like most of your friends and people that you know, are they registered to vote?
No.
No?
They're just not registered to vote?
Like, period.
Why?
What's going on?
I don't know. I'm registered to vote. The first election that I was allowed to vote for, due to like being after 18, was actually the 2016 election, which I voted in. But I think a lot of people I think what a lot of my friends feel is like, it won't make a difference. You know, you always hear like, it'll make a difference, each vote counts, but like, I think people are just so exhausted at this point that they just feel like they've just completely tapped out.
Right, and I want to say that like political exhaustion is a real thing that's happening. But as far as the millennial vote is concerned, that's historically always been a problem. People the age range 18 to 32 have always been the lowest turnout of voters, and that's another segment we could do. If only everyone under a certain threshold would show up too, we would also be a democratically controlled nation. And so that's not unique. But I think coupled with the political apathy that's going on right now, because Trump and the administration and politics is really making us all feel like we're having one long hangover, you know? And so I think that doesn't do anything to help. But that's also what they want, Enrique. They want us to be tired and apathetic.
Which is so frustrating.
Yeah, and so we have to remind ourselves exactly what's at stake, and that in every election. And also, we have to do a better job. Sorry, this is my thing. I love politics.
Of course, and I knew you know so much about this subject.
Well, I just like to read a lot on it, and I also was a political science major in college, but then I became a comedian, so, you know, that doesn't make any sense. But
well, there's a lot of comedy in politics.
There is. But I think it's important for us to to recognize. Well, I lost my train of thought. Do you remember what I was saying along before that?
About did you've read a lot about it?
Yeah, I think that
you studied politics.
Yeah, well, the apathy is what I was kind of going back to. Is that it's important for us not to just to let that sort of tiredness win, because that's what the Trump administration wants from us, is sort of to give up and to turn the channel off. And it's important to check in with each other and remind each other how can we be better allies to each other, because it all matters.
And I also think it's like, even it's not if you're a Trump supporter or not, or you're a Democrat or a Republican or anything, but if you don't vote, then you don't have the right to complain about anything that is happening. It's like you have this opportunity that's unique. Not everybody has this. You know, there's so many places that still where, you know, it's hard to vote, and, you know, yes, there's a lot happening in this country, but we have this benefit, and I don't understand why people wouldn't take advantage of it. It's the best way to be heard, and we have a lot of clowns representing us that it's embarrassing. And when you're not registered to vote and you're not voting, the person that is responsible for that is the one that you're looking at in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I also read that of the people who are not registered to vote, of the LGBTQ people who are not registered to vote, 50% of them would vote Democrat. More than maybe a little over 15% would vote Republican, and the rest would be independent. So Democrats would be able to take a strong hold. So go to vote, register to vote, take a friend to vote, and we'll be right back with Stan Zimmerman and Raquenel.
He has written for sitcoms such as The Golden Girls, Gilmore Girls, Roseanne, and Rita Rocks. And she has starred in some of the hottest telenovelas and reality shows in Hollywood. Now, they're taking on ice with their adaptation of The Diary of Anne Frank. Please welcome Stan Zimmerman and Raquenel. Welcome, guys!
We always clap.
Yes.
Now I got scared. Now when I see eyes, I was like, no, I'm not ready for this. Thanks
So
for
much
having
to
us.
talk about. Thank you
where
for
do
being
we
here.
start?
So much to talk about because, well, I mean, I want to start from the beginning with your writing.
Yes.
And the
Because
Golden Girls.
the
that you
Golden
have
Girls
here.
are right
I
here
love
with
that.
us. You've written for some of the most iconic sitcoms ever, like that
But
they've
you don't
traveled
know
over
it
the
at the
world.
time. You're just doing a job. And
That's what I
that-
want to know.
That's what's been so cool about it, is that years later, suddenly we're still talking about it. I feel like in the past year, Golden Girls has taken on this whole new crazy fan base, which I love. And I'm going to go on the Golden Girls fan cruise out of Miami. And very
Amazing.
exciting.
There is a fan
Fan
cruise.
cruise. It was so popular. Now they have 2 sailings, and they've set up one for 2021.
Wow, I didn't know.
So,
Wow.
Amazing.
yes.
Amazing.
Come visit
Amazing.
us
Well,
on
you were
cruise.
writing LGBTQ stories, particularly on the Golden Girls, at a time where nobody, I mean, this is, way before Ellen came out and all of this.
Well,
so
I
it's
did
like,
Roseanne.
how did you get away with
I
it?
wrote the lesbian kiss episode on Roseanne.
Roseanne.
So
Yeah,
at
that's
that
right.
point, well, on Golden Girls, we were not out. You were told by agents and managers you had to bring a woman to an event.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a whole different time period.
yes.
On Roseanne, when we wanted to do the lesbian kiss episode, it was literally like 23 seconds. It became a news event. So I would come home from work and watch it on the 11 o'clock news, and ABC said, we're not going to air this episode. And God bless Roseanne. We don't know what's happened to her since then,
Yes.
but that's a whole nother episode.
Yes.
And some man being involved. And she said, I will buy the show back and put it on HBO, but we're airing this episode. So I really owe her a lot.
But she pushed
being-
but it aired, right?
It aired. They
On the
eventually
network.
aired it,
Okay.
yes. And
yeah,
it was
I remember
one
watching
of the
it.
biggest
That's
audiences.
that's how I'm gay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all my fault, and Mariel Hemingway's fault.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. It was,
I'm glad I could be a part of your
Roseanne,
coming out.
thank you. It was Roseanne. Roseanne probably has a lot more for me being gay. Honestly, she was
Yeah.
such a gay character. She's not gay, but like her flannel and her, her brashness, her in chargeness.
And her sister was in
and
real
the-
life, and so
yes.
there was always talk that whether Jackie
Oh.
character was going to be.
Oh, I didn't
And I
realize
think
that.
when she wasn't, that's why we brought Sandra Bernhard on, who was a friend, and then
Who
ended up being on the
was
show.
out. She was
Yes.
out, right? She's
Yes.
always been out.
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
crazy. Were
Yes.
they in a? It was like a gym. What was some dance? Some kind of dance I remember, and they kissed each other against the wall or something. There was like a kiss, right?
Well,
Or
you
was that
wrote
something
it.
else that I
That was
watched?
something that's in your dreams.
Where was the
maybe.
kiss? Where was the kiss?
It was at a lesbian bar called Lips.
Yes, but they were dancing
yeah,
on
they
a
were
floor.
Dancing.
It
They
was
were
like a-
very
okay,
good.
maybe it was a
but
converted
the
high
kiss
school
actually
drink.
happened at a table.
Okay.
And the one thing I don't like about it, which I wanted them to edit out, was at the end, Roseanne kind of wipes off the kiss. And I was like, no, let's not do that. That was like the one thing, but I was so glad that it was actually in because we didn't know
That's cool.
whether they were actually going to keep that in.
And were you there during the Golden Girls era when they wrote the Lebanese jokes?
I was not there.
Oh, because that was good too. They like had a good.
Do you think we will ever catch up with, in the world of telenovelas, they're ever going to catch up with gay characters that have dignity?
Yes, we will, yes. Definitely. Actually, they're now in Mexico, they're airing some telenovelas with the principals are gay couples.
Oh yeah, that's right. On Televisa, the one that's like the young couple. So finally, there's there's hope.
Actually, the last telenovela that I was in Mexico, Una Familia con Suerte, a lucky family, the producer Juan Osorio is the same producer. He's always trying to make some projects that are like real, you know, and updated. Those old stories, telenovelas, thank God are done because they're not real anymore.
Well, I mean, we really want to talk to you, of course, about the Diary of Anne Frank. It's been such a controversial
Since
play.
2018,
yes,
we've been doing it.
I know,
but
you've
I
got
owe you
that
the
sort-
biggest thanks because,
Me too.
because she would not be sitting next to me if it wasn't for you and our long friendship.
too.
And then you bringing her to my plays, and then I kept thinking, I have to work with this person. And I just, some way, somehow. And then when I came up with the idea of doing the Anne Frank with the Latinx cast. So it came from watching CNN, and they talked about a Jewish woman who was hiding a Latina mom and her 2 daughters when her husband was deported by ICE.
But wait, because I don't want anybody to miss the story.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, then I guess we were going to take a break, and then we'll be right back with more from Stan and Raquenel.
And we're back with more from Stan and Raquenel. Okay, so you were telling us, Stan.
I need a roll tongue in my name. You can't really do it with Stan. can you? It does nothing. Yeah.
But we were talking about how you read an article and that inspired you.
Yes, so on CNN about a Jewish woman hiding a Latina mom and her 2 daughters when her husband was suddenly deported by ICE, when he went in to fill out all the forms and never came back. And I thought, we're literally living in LA in the times of Anne Frank. There are over a dozen people doing this. And so then all of a sudden I thought, what if I cast everyone in the attic in the play with Latinx actors, not change a word of the script?
Wow.
And it's like, that's either a crazy idea or a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
so I waited till the sun rose and called all my friends, and they're like, you have to do this now before the election. And that's when I think I called you and about her and all that, and she came in and she was a brilliant Mrs. Von Don. And the wonderful thing, that's kind of like a very showy part, and Shelley Winters won an Oscar for it, but it's usually played by older women. But she flirts with Mr. Frank all the time. So I liked having, for the first time, a Mrs. Von Don that is sexual and that is, you know, all the things that Raquenel brings to it.
All this ugliness over here.
Yeah, and she just, I mean, it's such a beautiful fit. We had no idea that suddenly at the first rehearsal I get a text from a friend saying you're trending on Breitbart and Drudge.
Wow.
And so then word got out saying
That's not what you
liberal
wanna do.
Jewish director had changed the script and made the Nazis ICE agents when I was not changing a word of the script. And that's when it became literally overnight a worldwide controversy.
Wow.
And I had to go on CNN, and luckily Brooke Baldwin had me on and I got to explain it.
Okay.
And the good of it was that we sold out.
Yes.
And that's why we've been doing it here. We've done it in Beverly Hills. We did it in Vancouver. They brought us up there. We're talking about doing it in Texas, which I would love to bring it to El Paso to do it.
Oh my God, that would be
I
amazing.
think that could be very powerful.
Yeah.
We're talking about doing it in Burbank, and I would love to get it in Washington, D.C., and get AOC to come see it. Because when we were talking about it, we got a lot of flack of comparing the Holocaust with what's happening here in the city. And I said, it's not the same thing, but we can learn from it. It's about, for me, stepping into the shoes of the characters, which literally these actors do every night. And since then, it's gotten a lot closer to being very similar. And now AOC has, you know, literally been bringing up the Holocaust. So I would love her to see it. And Barbara Streisand, too. Because she's been posting a lot about the connections.
Yes.
So,
really?
so that's been really interesting over the, you know, we were a little bit ahead of the curve and took heat for it, but now we have, you know, some help behind
what
us.
always happens.
Yes, but it's okay
what
to,
always happens.
but that's what's happened with me with The Lesbian Kiss. I mean, it was never done on television. And I don't know why I keep falling into these things. I was really a good student, not a troublemaker. But suddenly as an adult, I'm, you know,
You like to create a little
bit.
controversy.
But I think if it provokes conversation,
Of
it's
course.
important. And this, And as I tell people when we go out and do the show, this morning kids woke up on cement floors under Mylar blankets, and we're not talking about it, we're not doing anything, and that's why we have to keep doing it. If there's anybody out there that wants to come and get involved, it's really a grassroots thing we're doing, bringing it to different communities that want to help us.
And I can't imagine it to be more close to your heart than it is. I mean, you're Mexican, you're a Mexican woman, you're an immigrant.
Exactly.
What kind of backlash have you gotten for the character?
Everything. Actually, my own life story has a lot of things to do with this Diary of Anne Frank. And every single character is so special, but the place, the situation they were trapped in, and honestly, my character, I love her because she's so human. She allows herself, even though she's trapped in this small place with 7 more people, she allows her to be like spontaneous or flirting with someone, or she needs to live, you know, and that has a lot of things to do with me.
And somebody's been nominated for an award.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thanks, Ron Stevens. Oh my God, I'm so excited because I'm nominated for Best Supporting Actress in Drama. Thank you for this gift. And on the 34th Annual Robbie Awards.
So great. Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's also important because kids don't read it in schools anymore. And we found out our young Anne Frank, Genesis, did not know who Anne Frank was until the audition.
Wow.
And yeah, my face went that, but I had smoke out of my ears. And that's why bringing it to schools is so important.
We have a little game for you.
No.
We have here some
ready.
of your favorite characters that you've created.
Oh my
and
God.
we're going to ask a few questions. And you don't even have to say names. You just have to pick an image.
Okay.
So let's start with...
Can I turn this one over already?
We want to love it. Why?
We have to be clear that we're talking about the characters, not the actual
Yes.
people.
Oh,
So
then,
just so you
then
know.
I can keep it up.
Characters.
Okay.
Correct.
Because
We're done
otherwise
with the
it
characters.
can give me nightmares.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so marry, shag, and kill.
Okay.
You know the game, Marry, Shag, Kill?
Yeah. I might have played that one time.
All right, let's start with the Golden Girls characters.
Oh, I'm not doing it all
Yeah, I
together?
think they should do it.
Do it for the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Let's start
The
with the
Golden Girls,
Yeah, marry,
okay.
shag,
Well, you have to shag Blanche, because that's obvious.
Now he's being rational. Shagging Blanche.
I would have to marry Estelle because we got very, very close, and she's my girl. What am I left with? Kill?
Yeah. How can you decide? It's going to be B.
Really?
Right? She's still the only one alive.
Oh my
You're
God.
so rude.
And she's
Well,
gonna
you'll
outlive
find out in my book, The Girls from Golden to Gilmore, but I'm
Oh my
not going
gosh,
to say
I have
anymore.
to read this book.
Yeah,
I didn't know you had a book. Okay.
Okay,
Are we
this
out
is
of time? Can we keep
definitely-
going? One more. Let's do the Roseanne.
the other ones?
Let's do
With Roseanne.
Roseanne.
Marry, shag, and kill.
Those 3 characters. You couldn't give them Darlene.
He's suffering.
I guess shag Sandra. We are friends.
Okay.
Mary, I think she's so talented.
She is
Laura
so
Metcalf.
talented.
And we know this one.
Yeah,
Well,
she did-
she'll probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Enough
thank you
said,
for playing with us.
Yeah, thank you for that. Oh my God, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Thank you. Thank you all.
We thought that'd be fun, but we traumatized him instead. I just want to thank Stan and Raquenel for coming out, and you can follow them on @RaquenelOfficial and @ZimmermanStan for more information and what they're up to. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
She is the first trans person to run for California State Office and the first trans woman editor-in-chief of a magazine. Ashlee Marie Preston fights for a better future, and her fight is not only inspirational, but aspirational. She stopped by LATV to share her story. Let's take a look.
My name is Ashlee Marie Preston. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, but I've lived in Los Angeles, California for the last 15 years. I am a media personality, entertainment critic, and civil rights activist. So I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, which is the land of God doesn't make mistakes. And I remember growing up having this internal conflict around who I was, not quite having language to unpack that, but intuitively knowing that the environment that I was in was not a safe space to explore that. So at 19 years old, I moved out to Los Angeles, and I was excited because for the first time, I got to explore living in my true authenticity. I got my first job, and I was excited about that because I could be self-supporting. I was truly an adult, and nobody could tell me anything. Well, I wasn't prepared for the reaction that I would get from coworkers and even from my employee around transitioning on the job. I was bullied and harassed. When I went to HR, nothing was done about it. So I started to develop this social anxiety about going to work. And finally, one day, they put me out of my misery and fired me. I became homeless and I was on the streets of Hollywood and had to engage in survival sex work. And then I ended up using methamphetamine as a social lubricant to numb me to everything that I had to do in the name of survival. So I've done a lot of work with local organizations and directors of programs to figure out how we can be more inclusive of our trans and non-binary / gender non-conforming clients, those people in need. Many of these directors and programs have embraced it. We have seen a great deal of improvement, but I think the bigger idea is how do we mitigate some of the barriers to access that lead us to the shelter? So what would it look like if we started creating economic opportunities for trans people of color? What would it look like if we started centering our mental health and healing? So it's important for those of us who are in trans Hollywood to tell accurate stories that represent those of us who are still on the margins. It's easy for us to get in Hollywood and all of a sudden become more focused and interested on the glamour and the glitz and the celebrity of it all. But at the end of the day, my status or social capital won't keep me safe. Last year kicked off a campaign called #ThriveOver35. And it was an opportunity to underscore the statistic that the average life expectancy of a Black trans woman is only 35 years old. So instead of media creating all of this trauma porn around our experiences, it was an opportunity to take a look at the barriers, as I said, but also to celebrate one another, to change the optics on the idea that our entire existence has to be suffering and has to be violence and has to be rejection and we have to live on the margins. And it's like, no, we get to change that. Liberation isn't a destination, it's an opportunity to exercise it every single day. So liberation is now. It is being able to empower one another. It is taking hold of opportunities that do present themselves. It is not laying down and just taking it, but pushing back and being resilient.
For more on Ashlee and the Q Agenda, visit latv.com and we will see you next time.
Bye.